Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Rantin Review Entertainment. We are picking up with The Walking Dead, Season 11, the final season. And you may have noticed, if you follow my channel, that I have not reviewed the last couple of episodes. I haven't done reaction videos to the last couple of episodes, but I did want to talk about episode 22 called Faith that aired this past week on AMC Plus and will be airing on AMC next week. But we are now at the very end of season 11, 2 episodes left after this. And I'm going to talk about episode 22. I'm going to talk about why I haven't been reviewing the show for the past couple weeks and just general things about season 11. Yeah, there's going to be some complaints in here, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that you can take your barbed wire bat and help out the channel by smashing that like button. Make it turn black and blue. Help out the YouTube algorithm. Let other Walking Dead fans know about this channel and that we cover The Walking Dead somewhat on this channel. I definitely appreciate it very much. You might as well hit the subscribe button and the notification bell while you're down there as well. But let's talk about what happened in episode 22 of season 11. And my overall thoughts is we're now heading into the end of The Walking Dead. Sort of. So first off, I'm going to talk about why I haven't covered the last couple episodes, and that's quite frankly because they haven't been very good. Not a lot has happened. A couple things happen here or there. Aaron, him and Jerry discovered that, walkers are getting some new skills, which is interesting. An interesting twist that I don't know how they're going to play that off now. We only have 2 episodes left. But that does come up in episode 22 as well. There was the whole revolt that I covered in the last time I reviewed the show about Sebastian and Eugene getting Sebastian killed, and Pamela wanting to put him on trial and all that other stuff. So outside of that stuff, really not much has happened since then. The crews everybody was taken and put into concentration camps or whatever. So we pick up here in episode 22. We got a couple, the group is split up all over the place. So let's start with Aaron and Jerry. They are with Lydia and Lydia's boyfriend, whose name, unfortunately, I forget at the moment. They're out in the woods, and we do get one answer that we have been wondering about for a while and hope that they would cover in season 11. And it was kind of it's not one of the top tier ones, but it is something that fans have been asking about. And that's, where has Luke been since halfway through season 10? Where has he been? Yes, he was at Oceanside, but we haven't seen him on screen. Now, the actor has had other obligations, but he did show up very early on in season 22. Very cool to see Luke back, him and his girlfriend. And they basically let us know that they escaped Oceanside, which kind of, again, here's the thing where the whole Oceanside thing was left on a cliffhanger at the end of the second part of season 11 with, Hornsby flipping a coin, and then we never really saw what happened to them, which I think we probably should have seen. But we didn't see it. We didn't see any of those the characters that we didn't know from Oceanside and what their fate were. They talked about what Rachel said and what Rachel told them to do, but they basically joined up with Aaron and Jerry and the rest of the crew. They're out in the woods trying to find their way to Oceanside, but then they realize they can't go there, so now they're going to head off to Alexandria to help out the rest of their friends. We also, however, learn during this little expedition that these guys are taking that Lydia is using, and they're using the Walker guts and the Whisperer tactics to kind of blend into a Walker horde that's heading towards Alexandria. Even though the Commonwealth kind of is out there with their Jeeps and shining flashlights on them, they can't really see and tell which of the walkers is our crew and which are actual walkers. We do have a very significant thing that happens, though, because Lydia, who's got a knife on her, she stumbles and bumps into one of the walkers and drops the knife. We see another walker fall and pick up the knife, and I haven't seen a lot. Angela King did not talk about this in the post-show wrap-up of episode 22 on AMC Plus. I haven't seen some of the other YouTubers like Movie Idol talk about that, but that was pretty significant because I saw the walker after the walker climbed up to attack Jerry and Aaron in a couple episodes ago. That was like a big deal. They call them the climbers now. Now you got walkers picking up weapons, knives. What is that about? Don't know, but it's an interesting story beat. We've only got 2 episodes to resolve it. Another part of this is what's going on with Daryl, Carol, and Maggie, and Rosita, and Gabriel. They're trying to figure out how to infiltrate Alexandria to kind of save their friends and save the kids in particular. because Maggie's very upset. They took Herschel and separated them. So Maggie wants to get Herschel back and wants to get to Alexandria to find her kids. Same thing with Rosita wanting to find Coco. They're out in the woods. They're trying to make a plan. Daryl and Connie, for some reason, decide to go in through the sewers while everybody else sneaks in. I don't know why they just didn't sneak in with everybody else. What was the point of that? Although I think the point of it was just for them to have a scene where we see the place in the tunnels and the sewers underneath Alexandria, which was the place where Carl admitted he got bit. I think that was probably the only reason they did that. But they all sneak into Alexandria. There's a brief scene with Carol and Maggie where they're talking about kids, and Carol's referencing Sophia again and some of the other kids, some of the numerous kids that Carol has lost over the seasons. Geez, that woman. Yeah, so that was a little moment, but again, this wasn't an earned moment. This was kind of just like, we need them to talk. So have them talk about Sophia and the kids and stuff, and making the world better because of them and not for them or whatever. So we had that scene. We had a couple other scenes here and there, but I'll talk about that in a second. So they all sneak in and try to help rescue everybody at Alexandria. What's happening in Alexandria is where the rest of another group of our crew is, where we've got Kelly is there with Magna, and Negan and Ezekiel in particular, and Negan's wife. And Negan and Ezekiel, now this was an interesting part where they kind of went back a little bit to some of the stuff that happened seasons ago in the All Out War storyline, that Ezekiel never really got over the fact that Negan's saviors wiped out all of his people in that one scene in the field. And of course, they killed that one kid with the stick that Morgan was trying to, which was before the All Out War started. And Ezekiel's never forgiven Negan for a lot of that stuff. And Negan, taking exception to it a little bit. He knows that everybody hates him in the crew, but he's stuck here with them. But he's going to try to escape for his wife and his unborn child. And Negan's causing a lot of problems. He gets in with the commander of this group of the Commonwealth. Sees a lot of his former self in this guy. Some interesting scenes with him and his wife, but it winds up with Negan kind of working out a deal after him and Ezekiel have some falling out. We did get to see where that one kid who was the former soldier, the Commonwealth soldier, who tried to assassinate or cause the ruckus very early in season 11. What happened to him? He's in this camp, so he's part of the crew now too, I guess. And we wind up with Negan kind of offering himself up as a sacrifice for the rest of the crew. So he offers himself up as a sacrifice. The tables are turned though, because this Commonwealth douchebag takes his wife and puts him next to him, and then Negan starts flipping out like that wasn't the deal. And he's like, no, there's no martyrs here. We're going to execute your wife and make you watch in order to hurt Negan. And at this point in time, I was like, Negan, we kind of all thought something's got to happen to Negan's wife that would enable Negan, who's about to have a kid, to go off to New York with Maggie and the spinoffs that come after all of this. So how is that going to happen if he's got a wife and a kid? Well, we're all like, yeah, she's probably going to die right now. This would be the scene. And we're probably... Now, if they had done this, which they didn't, by the way, if they had done this, that would have been kind of crazy, because you can imagine if they had killed his wife, his pregnant wife, the old Negan would have shown up out of nowhere. We would have seen the old Negan come out, and God help the Commonwealth soldiers if that happened. But it didn't happen. Ezekiel actually, and which I think storyline-wise is probably better, Ezekiel came out after all of this conflict he's had with Negan, and he stood in front of Negan and his wife and put his hands up, and then all the rest of the crew came in there. So you saw this kind of, these two former leaders of communities, and they talk about this, about them being leaders, in different ways kind of standing up. Negan gets his redemption finally on the show by offering himself up for the rest of the crew, a bunch of people who hate him. And then you see Ezekiel's leadership skills by being the more peaceful leader and inspiring the rest of the crew to stand with him. And they're all going to get shot. The guy's like, whatever, I admire your bravery, but we're just going to shoot all of you. And then the one soldier who Negan saw earlier in the episode had a bit of an issue with the chain of command and them kind of screwing him over. That soldier turns on the rest of the Commonwealth. We get a little bit of a kidnapping scene with Connie that lasts about 5 seconds before Daryl comes out of nowhere and stabs the commander douchebag in the back of the head. And that's the end of that, which I thought that scene was very intense. It was the most intense I have felt watching pretty much most of season 11. Because if you didn't know that Negan was going on a spinoff, you might have thought that would have been the end of him. Definitely thought it was going to probably be the end of his wife and his kid. But none of that happened. And again, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit after this. The last piece of this is, God, there's so much. Eugene's trial. So Eugene is on trial for Sebastian douchebag getting killed. It's a kangaroo court. Yumiko's trying to do her best, but they know that the big thing is to get the rest of the Commonwealth on their side against Pamela Milton. They are successful with doing that from the testimony, but again, the trial is rigged. Yumiko tries to encourage Mercer to help him out because no matter what happens, Eugene's going to be found guilty and be executed. Mercer says he knows what's going on. He even knows that they took Princess and put her to one of these concentration camps. And Yumiko's like, Mercer, we need you to testify to help us out. Mercer's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So we're like, oh, come on, Mercer. But we all kind of know something was going to happen. And Eugene is found guilty and he goes to be executed. But when he's taken back, we get Mercer, who's waiting there for him. And I kind of thought this was what was going to happen. Mercer probably knew the better strategy would be for him to get Eugene released. Because if Mercer testified, that didn't mean that Eugene would live. Eugene probably would have been executed anyway because they would have still found him guilty. But if Mercer was the one who was going to be operating the transfer of the prisoner, being Eugene, he could intercept, save Eugene, and we got the great line from Mercer to end the episode, it's time to F some S up. So all of that was cool. Like, the last half of this episode was really cool. The thing with the Walker picking up the knife, the uprising that's happening in the Commonwealth, Mercer finally helping out our crew and joining our side, Daryl coming in and saving the day at Alexandria, Ezekiel and Negan's conflict resolving itself the way that it did, with Negan trying to martyr himself for the crew, and then the crew kind of finally, and that's what the thing was. It was an interesting story beat because Negan was on his knees about to be executed. If you remember how we met Negan, he put our crew on their knees to execute some of them. So it was kind of interesting and a nice little, between the line story beat here, where our crew, instead of letting him get executed on his knees, which again, most of them weren't even there for that situation, but they could have let him, this is poetic justice that you get taken out this way. They in fact said no. And even Ezekiel says, the world is broken, but we don't have to be. He's not going to let that happen. Let's not do this. We're past this. I guess that's kind of, I don't know what could happen in the next two episodes, but that's almost the equivalent of Rick's line from the comic books that we are not the Walking Dead. I guess that's kind of the equivalent in the TV show. The world is broken, but we don't have to be. It's kind of the same thing. Not with the same impact, of course. So again, there's 2 episodes left, and now I'm going to talk about season 11 and some of the shortcomings. And this episode did kind of show, even though it was the best episode they've had in the third part of season 11, watching some other people talk about it, it got me thinking about some of the shortcomings that have happened. And, I don't know if this is Angela Kang or if this is Nicotero or whoever you're going to blame this on. But the show, there are some significant things that the show is not doing and why it's feeling kind of mundane. And the irony about it is, I think it's because we have too many characters. And the funny thing about that is, for the first 8 seasons, people complained that they kept killing off all these guys. Why did they kill off Glenn? Why did they kill off Abraham? They shouldn't have killed this. And I have been arguing for a long time on every time somebody brings that up. It's like, number one, that is the theme. That is the core theme of The Walking Dead. The theme of The Walking Dead is living with people you love who die and how you live on after that happens. That is the central theme to this entire series, whether it's in the TV show, the comics, the video games, whatever. That's across the board. You can check out my gaming channel for the video game that has that theme in it. That's always been the central theme of The Walking Dead. I think what has happened is that the showrunners now, and Angela Kang, the buck stops with her, so I'm going to have to put this on her shoulders, probably heard all of the feedback that people were complaining about that stuff and the viewership's dropping. So if you've noticed, since Kang took over, there hasn't been that many major characters killed. At the end of season 9, which was Angela Kang's first season of running the show, we had the Pike scene, right? Which they killed off a lot of major characters. That was the last shocking death scene of a major character from our crew on the show. And that's when Henry and I think it was Tara, a couple other people, random other side characters, and of course, unfortunately, Enid, which I was shocked at, wound up with their heads on spikes in the Whisperer War. And that was like 3 years ago. That's how far back this goes. Since then, through seasons 10 and 11, which timeline-wise, and if you count the number of episodes, is really like 2.5 seasons. Since then, there have only been 2 major characters I can think of who have actually died from our crew, and that's Sadiq and Aiden, which, again, really weren't major characters. You know, Aiden was kind of around here, and Sadiq was there for Carl, and he's Coco's father, but he wasn't around that long. So the impact wasn't as great for those characters dying off as something like when Herschel died, or when Carl died, or when Beth died, or something like that. So there's that part. And the problem with that is that there's, like I said, there's too many characters. Now you can go back to season 5. Now the show for the first 8 or 9 seasons would kind of run with about 12 to 14 characters in our group ensemble. Like you can go back to season 5 and it was Rick, Carl, Michonne, Daryl, Carol, Glenn and Maggie, Sasha, Eugene, Tara, Abraham, Gabriel, Eugene, Rosita. You know, it was like 12 to 14 characters, and you know, some other characters would come in and out or whatever, but it was usually around that number. I looked at this episode and when I started thinking about this, I started counting the characters, and there's it's gonna take forever if I can remember them all. You got Aaron, Jerry, Lydia's boyfriend, whose name again escapes me, sorry. Luke is back now, so there's another one. You got Carol, Daryl, Maggie, Rosita, Gabriel, Negan's wife, Ezekiel, that's not counting Eugene, and Yumiko, and Magna, and Kelly, and Connie. we're at 18 now, and and then if you count in like the kids, you know, Judith and RJ and Herschel, and then the various boyfriends and girlfriends, you're upwards of over 20 to 25 characters now in the main ensemble. And it has been, if you look at this season, there has not been enough time for all these characters to get proper screen time. I mean, Magna, what has Magna done really since the middle of season 10? Pretty much nothing. You don't get these interpersonal relationships. A lot of them haven't been resolved. They've just kind of been washed over or rushed through. Like the issue, Daryl and Carol's issue, I don't even remember what the resolution was to that. Rosita and Gabriel have had issues, kind of rushed through that one. We've had issues with Lydia that kind of rushed through that, like just over with. You know, Aaron's increased anger, that just kind of went away. And tons of other little interpersonal. We haven't had a lot of those. We haven't had a lot of these emotional beats within the members of our crew, which was, again, always part of the hallmark of The Walking Dead, is that you'd have these issues between characters throughout an entire season that would get resolved, and at the end of the day they would realize they were a family. And you really don't have that now, plus the fact that with so many characters you can't do that. You can't give all these characters enough screen time, and you can't spend a lot of time with any interpersonal things. It's like they're just kind of resting on their reputation right now, especially the legacy characters. And ultimately, my biggest complaint is at the end of the day, and again, I've been, for those of you who haven't seen me before talking about The Walking Dead, I started watching the show when they were in the 7th season, and I've been watching, so I came in halfway through, right? I came in after the golden era of The Walking Dead, so to speak. And I've always been an advocate. It's like, yeah, you know, people kept saying the show should end and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, no, they haven't gotten to the Commonwealth story, the Whisperer story, All Out War. We're now through those stories. We're now getting to the end. And really, we still have nothing about Rick, nothing about Michonne, nothing about the CTR thing that's in all the spinoffs. It's supposed to be where Rick is. Still haven't heard anything about that. We don't know what happened with I think the guy's name was Nigel, that led Michonne to the island. Judith still hasn't told anybody that she knows that her dad is alive and that her mother, Michonne, went to go find him. Still haven't gotten to that. And I hope what they're not going to do is in the very last episode kind of, oh, yeah, that's something else. Spinoff, go watch the spinoff shows. And it's like a 5 minutes of the very last episode at the end. That would be absolutely horrible. And the truth of the matter is, as far as what I see it from just being a writer and being somebody who looks at these kind of stories, and what it comes across to me is that AMC, the showrunners, The Walking Dead in general, they are just filling in content. This is not about telling a good story. This is about, we want to just keep churning out as many episodes of The Walking Dead as we can. We want to squeeze every last advertising penny we can. We can want to squeeze every last bit of interest out of the decreasing audience that we have. There's still a couple million people that love the show and will watch anything that says The Walking Dead. So we're just going to milk this as long as we can. You know, the thing was, when you heard there were 24 episodes in the final season, season 11, it's like, oh, we're going to get a lot of answers. We're going to get a lot of stuff. That's why they need 24 episodes to do all this stuff. And honestly speaking, they haven't done much of anything. Now, I don't know how this is going to affect interest in all the spin-off shows. I don't know if people are, you know, if they end season 11 and we get zero answers to any of these questions, and which is, you know, with 2 episodes left, even though the last episode is supposed to be like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, it doesn't look like we're getting any CRM or CTR, whatever that, the Civil Republic, whatever that's called. We're not getting any of that. We're probably not going to get any of that. We're probably not going to see Rick. We're probably not going to see Michonne. Don't know what's going on with Nigel. Probably not going to get any answers. We're not going to get anybody, you know, Maggie having a moment of talking to a memory of Glenn and having a little flashback with Glenn, or having a flashback with Rosita and Abraham, or having any kind of, like they did when Rick's final episode, which I thought was cool. They handled that really well, and I was expecting the same here. Again, we still have 2 episodes left. They may do something, but it will feel kind of rushed, and it will feel kind of like, what have we been watching these 24 episodes for, waiting for this stuff to happen, and none of it's happening. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly of The Walking Dead season 11. As I'm reviewing episode 22, I will be reviewing episode 23 and 24 next week as they air on AMC Plus, and I will be having a long discussion about my final thoughts on The Walking Dead season 11 and The Walking Dead in general, probably for a while to come, because again, I know I'm going to watch the Rick and Michonne spinoff. I'm not so sure about the other ones, but we will be continuing to talk about The Walking Dead on this channel. But I want to know what you guys out there think. Those of you who are still watching The Walking Dead and are still watching season 11, do you think that they're just milking this for as much as they can? Are you happy with the storyline of season 11, or are you like me? They're like, what, the 24 episodes and you haven't done much of anything? And do you agree that there's just the downside of them, you know, now getting cold feet after getting complaints for killing off major characters? Now that they aren't killing off major characters, now we've just got a pile of major characters. There's not enough time to really have any of them do much of anything. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reviews on the Rantin Review Entertainment. Have a good day.